Welcome to Public Comment. I'm John Dunbar, former mayor of Yountville.
And I'm Alfredo Pedroza, farmer.
And I'm Arik Housley, local entrepreneur.
Thanks for joining us as we talk about politics, people, and whatever else Arik wants to.
I think his title's better than homeowners.
I think you're right.
And they have to do something about it. Not just the city councils, but bodies of government.
There has to be multiple fields.
If we can provide opportunities for the children to really grow and develop.
This is good for Napa.
The problem is much bigger than like trying to point the finger at who's the problem, right?
So, disclosures for this episode.
What's new, John?
Well, what's not new is the background. But what is new is I went to the Napa Valley Education Foundation open house at their new campus, which is pretty amazing on 3rd Street.
That was donated, right?
That was donated to them. It was the Oxbow School, and it's right on the river. It's gorgeous. It's such a hidden gem because the public has not been exposed to that property, and it is beautiful. And they have some great programming. They've already started to advance culinary skills, art, culinary and art, and music. That's it. That was the other one I was trying to think of. So they're really doing some great work, advancing youth skills in a very beautiful setting.
I'll tell you, my disclosure, John, is I decided to make wine. In a time when everyone says it's doom and gloom, run. I'm making some wine. Brent and I are making some wine. And to me, it's a hobby. And all I want to do, here's how I measure success. I'm going to go to my favorite restaurants, try my wine. I'm going to sell it to them at wholesale price.
You hope.
And I'm going to buy it at retail. It's a great business, John. But for me, it's paying tribute to Brent and I. We come from farm working families. And no one could ever, in our family, have imagined that you could go in one generation from being a vineyard worker to making wine. So to me, it's because we're doing it.
And what's the name of the label?
Provecho.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Starting at the 22-minute mark and continuing until the end of our conversation with Arik, we discuss the loss of his daughter, Alaina, in November of 2018. We do not go into any details of the tragedy, but it may be uncomfortable content for some people. Arik, thank you so much for joining us today. It's, we've known each other for many years. Fredo, I think you have too. You have such an amazing family. We happen to just have your brother on here, a previous podcast. So
that wasn't planned, by the way.
Not that we're going to compare the episodes, but
You're
we'll
getting us
see.
started really good, John. Great opening.
But thank you for coming and tell us a little bit about your background. We know that your family's been around a long time here in the Napa Valley, but you've got your own kind of path that you've set for yourself. So tell us about it.
Yeah. So thank you guys for having me. Cheers.
Cheers.
If I have to struggle through a chat with some red wine in the afternoon, that could be worse, I guess.
That's
right. It's bad luck if I don't drink. Right.
That's right. You can't toast and not drink.
It could be Sonoma wine. Then it would be really bad.
We're not doing that. Anyway.
Sonoma?
No, absolutely not, man.
Finished, grew up here, went to Yountville school all the way through, finished, came home and took over a ranch market in Yountville back in 1996, about 3 days after I graduated, and saw the town change drastically. Oh, when did you move in?
Moved here in 98.
Okay. So just a couple of years after. Yep. So I went from taking it from a, local convenience store that had, chips and beer and gallon waters to having Schaefer Hillside Select and Paradigm and everything else on the shelf. So it was a big change. We still stayed the convenience store kind of concept. So I ran that for 20 years. And then in the meantime, took over the Napa store for Ranch Market there. In 2012, started Il Posto Trattoria with Justin Garfinia and I. We grew up together.
It's a great diner, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been...
Orecchiette.
Orecchiette.
Orecchiette. I love that.
Yeah. Everybody calls it Orecchiette. But
there you go. Change the name.
Orecchiette is it's kind of like the Meritage, right? They call it Meritage.
Right.
Target.
I call it good Italian food.
It's been good. So 12, almost 13 years now. We're excited about that. That's a big feat, especially in the restaurant industry, especially here in Napa. There's so many good restaurants and so much good food. So did that for years, and then was running Napa United Soccer for a long time, the youth programming when my kids were growing up and doing all that. and then started Napa Valley 1839 FC in
So what is that?
2017. So that's the local men's and women's semi-professional soccer teams here.
Wow.
We have a men's team and 2 women's teams. And the men ended up number 2 in the country in July. John informed me we were 1 penalty kick away from
Why you
winning.
got to do that?
So,
He knows.
He's right.
But I was
He's right.
watching. I had my phone on because we had to get to an event. I was watching the PKs on my phone in the back seat of the Uber. And the Uber driver was like, "What are you yelling about?" And sure enough, the last one that went low left to score.
Let's move on.
But it was also 200 degrees out there in Texas.
Yeah, it was in 90% humidity. You know, the thing that we looked at, and I remember I stood in the locker room after and everybody was a bit emotional. And I just said, look, boys, like we have to be very proud of where we came. We just finished number 2 in the country. And in the end, everybody loses to finish except for one, right? So they played their asses off. So then in the end, oh, can I say that? Sorry.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I said, let's go out tonight and let's celebrate a great season. And so they had a very enjoyable evening after that.
With red wine.
They got into the celebration part.
Well, there wasn't a lot of red wine in Texas like there is, but not the wines we're used to having. Like
let me ask you a question though, because I love soccer, no question about it. But for Napa County,
Football.
For Napa County, no, it's soccer right now. But for Napa County to have a team like that, how does that happen? Like, where did the idea come from? And what was like the mechanics to do a team?
Yeah.
Because now you're reaping the benefit of having it. I love going to Dodge Stadium and seeing the kids there play at halftime. But tell us the journey to that point.
Yeah, no, for sure. What was exciting about it was it got to where I was watching the kids grow. So since I went to Yountville School, at the time I was the only white kid in class. So I looked at it when my son was going through and I go, how do we inspire the local Hispanic youth that are smart kids, but don't know the pathway?
Totally.
So my thought was if we can give them a journey in soccer and get their grades, then they have the possibility of becoming an educated Latino that turns and goes like, hey, I want to.
It's a classroom outside a classroom. Yeah.
Yes, in many ways. So that was kind of the idea of like, should we try to do this in Napa? So I started doing some research. We decided to own it separately from Napa United because they're a local nonprofit for youth. And so I partnered with Josh Goss and a couple of other minority partners here in the Valley, and we started growing it. It all came because I studied in college in Italy and got to see a guy, Gabriele Battistuta, which was the Maradona after Maradona. And I got to see him play in Florence when I was there. And then I went to England at a different time and saw lower league soccer in England and how the community is really surrounding this. And, you know, we have so much in the Napa Valley. It's just amazing, right? Food and wine and everything else. But on a Saturday night, there's not a lot of entertainment activities. So I said, well, why don't we start family fun entertainment that's soccer centric? We've had an amazing partner with Justin Siena. They've allowed us to do beer and wine at the games by doing everything we do with those channels. And, you know, families come in, they have a glass of wine, kids are running around, they're having a great time. It's a crazy maker for me. Halftime, the kids are all on the field and I'm looking at it like going, it's chaos, but the families love it. And the joke is, this is like an event from the 80s because we sell Coca-Cola and Reese's peanut butter cups. And, you know, nowadays it's like, let's focus on healthier snacks and all. And it's like the kids are there. They're going home amped up on sugar.
Let
it's
kids
not my
be
call.
kids.
Yeah, there's a time to let them do it.
Yeah.
And so, we have 20 game nights a year. So we have a lot of fans that come to every game. We have quite a few that just come a couple times a year. But it's been great. So
look, I think it's an incredible win for Napa County, right?
You.
Because to your point, it's hard to find activities that you can do with your kids.
Yeah.
And to have something like that is informative, it's educational based. Because like when I go with my kids, like, look, the first half you're sitting down and watching. I want you to see and learn. Second half, do whatever the hell you want. You want to go with your kids and jump around, do that.
That's because during the break they get the sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but there's not many opportunities besides the bowling alley.
Yeah.
Right. But to me, I just wanted to kind of double click on that because that took intentional purpose from people like you and your partners to do that. And Napa County is benefiting from that. Right. So I guess the last question on this topic, where do you go from here? Right. Is there more upward mobility? Because you see these shows on Netflix of people buying sport teams and then they go big and everyone makes money. But what's the journey for you, and what is that next?
It's funny. I was in meetings all morning, and there's definitely talks of if we choose to try to go professional in the United States. And the difference that a lot of people don't understand is most countries, if your team's good and you win, like even for us getting to second, we would have typically in the English system promoted, right? Because you're in the top,
which means more money,
and they give you money to promote. So you can make your stadium and everything else match. Except here, it's like you want to promote, no problem. I need $3 million. You want to promote again? No problem. I need 10 million. It's like, well, then that's not really promotion and relegation, right? Yeah. And so in the other countries, it's a lot more feasible. Secondarily, we're such a huge country. You've got, we're the size of some continents, in some ways. And you go, well, so when Napa plays Miami, it's quite a trek. So we did this in 2019. We played in the Members Cup, and it was a tournament. There was 5 other teams around the country, which was Chattanooga, Milwaukee, Michigan, Detroit, as well as Detroit
on the
City.
Same level of competition?
Yeah. Well, multiple now are in the USL Championship. So we ended up traveling all over the country. It costs a fortune. The travel's crazy. There's a lot of standards that you have to try to meet and exceed, and it's very hard. So you have to have people that really believe in the project. Yeah. They believe in it. And most of the time soccer in America is not profitable. So you have to see how to make that work.
Really?
Well, you don't have the TV revenue that so many pro teams, even semi-pro teams have. And that's where
some are starting to go that way. Yeah. They're trying to work that out because they're seeing
streaming,
the streaming intentions that people can actually stream all these games. So you have a very captive audience of a very select type of demographic of people watching. And so that's where advertisers are willing to pay more money, because you're not just getting a random group of people from, 20 to 80. You're getting a random group or a very finite group of people that are into lower league football, soccer in America that see that happen. So it's pretty exciting. There's the possibility we're working on a stadium. There's some concepts of where we'd like to put it here in town that we're not saying a whole lot about yet, but we're looking to see if we can make that happen to do for the community, to have it where we would have the ability to have, all of these things going. And if we could do something, I'd love to stay at Justin. They're a great partner. I think the problem is the next level of soccer in America. You can't have American football lines on a American or in a soccer field.
And the track being that tight to the corners and things like that.
But
do you think, do you think as part of your future planning, is there a way to get a bump with the FIFA World Cup coming to the US and even being as close as Levi Stadium in Santa Clara? Or is that just too separate? I mean, obviously you're going to have international football fans in close proximity. Just wonder if there's a way that you can kind of magnify your existence in that.
Yeah, I guess the question would be, is a bump in revenue or in terms of valuation, or a bump in attendance?
Yes.
A bump in attendance?
All of the above.
All of the above. I guess it would,
Is Ryan Reynolds coming to see any of the games at Levi by any chance?
That's this question specifically.
Well, and what's funny is that's what changed the game over there. He went in and bought a $2 million or some odd dollar club.
But they got promoted.
Yeah, but they were paying players 2 levels higher. So imagine getting an American minor league A team or
like my Oakland A's.
Yeah, well, and paying them AAA value, like all the players at like 2 to 3 levels A's. Higher.
And playing in a AAA stadium, like my A's.
Yes, exactly. Well, hopefully that'll change.
But the economics were different though, right?
Yes, because every year, now, even though they were losing money, every year they're getting promoted. Now their valuation is, from what I'm understanding, they're out to sell a portion of the team for over $400 million valuation.
And they'll recoup their original investment.
Oh yeah, just and even the 10 million loss over 4 years, right? Yeah. So you look and go like, okay, let's say we're 50 million in debt, just to throw a number out there. Well, we went from a $2 million valuation to $400 million valuation. I think they did okay.
Well, what kind of numbers are you looking at when needing a potential stadium development project and other things that support that?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately the community needs, they need more fields, the opportunity to do a complex. And in order to make a complex profitable, there has to be multiple fields to make the stadium and all work. It would be more, the concept is more of a pop-up stadium. So it's a temporary facility, kind of like Sacramento Republic has been, if you've seen it, where it's not anything permanent build, but it doesn't look that way to the fans. So we've got some renderings that we've done. We've got some concepts that we've put together, but you're looking at probably $12 million raise. Yeah. So if you have it, John, and you want to loan it to us, that'd be great. I don't know if you brought your wallet.
You just sold some real estate, I heard. So
yeah. We'll just do a match. Yeah, so no problem.
Yeah. So we're working on a legacy donor program for Napa Valley 1839 to see if we can raise enough money to be able to do that. And,
what kind of square footage do you think you need minimum?
Oh gosh, probably that's a lot. 15 acres would be ideal. I mean, the more acreage you have, the more fields you could put in. The problem is finding all the municipalities or the groups to work together.
There's not a lot of open acreage like that.
And I think on that point, because we can go down so many rabbit holes here, but at the end of the day, right, what I wanted to illustrate here is you have private sector people, John, that are investing time and money into something that's good for Napa. And I do think institutions, especially government institutions, have to step up and be part of the solution. We had Carl was here. We talked about sports fields. The city council has heard about sports fields, and they have to do something about it. Not just the city councils, but bodies of government. Like, this is good for Napa.
Mm-hmm.
And part of where I think there's some negative emotion from our community is when they say, you're catering to tourists, you're catering to wineries. Well, shit, here's something that's serving us. Be part of it. Be part of the solution. And it's rare to have these private-public partnership opportunities, right? So when you have one, and I think we know kind of where you might be talking about, let's encourage them and let's commend them for doing that, right? I think there are some good serving institutions that are willing to say, you know what, it may not fit, but if we turn it, we squint our eyes a little bit, there's magic.
Yeah.
And that's where you're at.
There's also very big difference in many other countries. The government subsidizes a lot of youth development.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen here in the U.S.
Well, I would say
so.
We get in the way.
Well, yeah, probably. But so to have a multi-field, versatile sports complex that allows youth development, you could even be raising your next generation of your rosters and having even more of a local connection. Yeah. But that does take a lot of effort when you don't have kind of a guaranteed source of funding.
Well, we have, a perfect example is we had a player who's now playing in the USL1 level. He was with MLS Next, with Quakes 2. He's at AV Alta now. Lalo Blancas played with us when he was 15.
Wow.
So the idea is if you have these facilities that you can actually be on and train, and Napa United is doing a great job trying to do what they can, and with limitations of fields until certain times in the day and XYZ, Lalo grew up on his grandfather's, like in their trailer on a mattress on the floor, didn't have his own, like very impoverished, wonderful human being. It's awesome. He's now in the top 11 at USL1 right now. And so this is a Napa kid doing what he's trying to do. And the more we can provide these pathways, these are opportunities for him, which is pretty awesome. It is. The last time I was involved trying to help build a complex before COVID, and the problem was it was trying to get city, county, state, and Caltrans all to come together. And everybody has.
We know how that goes.
Yeah.
Will you win the lottery or would this happen? I don't know what has better odds.
Yeah,
honestly.
But the lottery would have probably twice the odds in a good way. You just look and say, it's just trying to find the people that really believe in the community and trying to do it. And that's kind of our concept to try to how to build community and do something more that can maybe bring something further and hopefully inspire more kids and more youth.
And I could talk about sports all day long, but I know there's other topics, and you typically as a moderator, John, you're very good at like guiding this conversation.
Today he's not doing a good job.
I agree. Yeah. But before we move the topic, because I like this topic, I do think
he throws it across the bow and then he keeps it.
But I will tell you though, sports, we talk about the positive upward mobility of people, right? But there's also this public health component, Adam, that I don't think we talk about. Kids, I grew up going outdoors all the time, right? Yeah. And I think especially nowadays, you want that for kids, right? And you see what's happening with our youth. Schools are closing. John and I, you and I were talking about the number of elementary schools closing to the state of California should alarm everyone. But because we don't have things like this, right? Mm-hmm. So we need activities. We need a sports complex. So if there's elected officials listening, do your job. Get it done. Like, enough talking. Let's go. So I'm ranting now. So I'm ready to move on.
No, I think the good news is on that note, sorry to interrupt, is there's a lot of communities that are in the Bay Area that have built these and they've really seen an influx of families because they have these. So they really do help communities. So.
Well, and I know that you're very aware because you were intimately involved in trying to save Yountville Elementary School, just like I was. And unfortunately that failed back in 2019, 2020. But we keep talking about how it's hard for young families to come here, even the ones that grew up here, to live here. And this is the kind of a life experience that helps convince them this is a good place to be. It's harder for them to find schools now that aren't private and expensive. And so at least if we can provide opportunities for their children to really grow and develop, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And I'll give you this, just a quick example. Like today at 4, we're at St. John's Lutheran. And then at 5, we're at Napa Valley College. And that's just on Monday. And then Wednesday, it's John's Lutheran, Willow School, and Napa Valley College. Super complicated. But as a parent, you suck it up because you want your kids involved.
But not all parents have the flexibility of taking their kids in midweek afternoons to do that.
I ran home because my parents couldn't pick me up. Right. Like that. Yeah. But that's the things you do, right? Because you place value on it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. There's a lot of single parents too that are like, I work till 6:30, so I can't sign my kid up for soccer. I don't have any way, or they don't feel like they have the resources. And so that's, then those are the people that you have to say like, hey, don't be afraid to ask. I'm happy to pick up Joey after school so he can go. And that's just trying to help them find that balance. And it's not easy. On the sports complex side, then we can turn on was the idea would be is someday is to possibly kind of reinvigorate a possible wooden bat league team or something there. Daryl Horn was a good friend and had spoken to me about trying to do a wooden bat league team in the Valley just 3 weeks before his passing. And so that would be the idea is if we had the complex in the location to have just something to do with the baseball as well. So would love it. So.
Well, we have Borman Field and people love it. And
it's awesome.
Folks come from all over the region, if not the state, to use it. And they all have such great memories of it. Being a state facility gets more complicated, as you know. Yeah. But also, I wanted to touch on briefly talking about community participation. You and your entire family have been committed to that forever. You've been super active for years with the Yountville Chamber of Commerce, and you were instrumental in representing the elementary school with the Napa Unified School District, and so many other ways. So I'm sure that everyone that's listening to us knows Housley and the family. They don't know all of your background. And we heard a lot from your brother about the early days and when your parents were, it was not easy because people are looking, you've got these soccer teams and the restaurants and the markets and all that. Life must be really good and easy. Yeah. And I know how many times you and I were on the phone, like, how do we get through this COVID time? Yeah. When all of a sudden you can't have people come to your stores, and how do we get through restaurant and all this other stuff? But you've even had a more personal, part of your life that if you're able to share with us, I know you've been very active in public, you and your wife, Hannah, sharing some of your difficult story, but if you could maybe just touch on that for us, please. Yeah, of course. Just throwing a one-liner in there. I love it when people say, I wish I could own my own business so I could get paid and not work. And I look straight in the eye and go, me too, because it's really not the way that it is, especially in small businesses in America. Right. So, so in November of 2018, our daughter was a victim of a mass shooting. She was a freshman at Pepperdine University. So I do public speaking now on grief and resilience. A lot of the conversations that I have is trying to talk to people of how you can help through that journey, because it's uncharted waters, right? So ironically, I have a book coming out called Always November. Let's see that cover. It's an absolutely gorgeous cover. So that was Alaina's some of her senior portraits done by Sarah Lane here in town. It's called Always November: Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience. So it's into two halves. The first half is the unthinkable, from the point where we got the phone call that night on November 8th until all the way through the coming home to Napa and the procession. Our local sheriff, Oscar Ortiz, and his brother, who was PD at the time, they unbeknownst to us, went down and escorted her body home. You guys grew up together. Yeah, so we all grew up at Yountville School together. So Adam and Oscar were the same year, and Alfonso and I were the same year. And so they asked permission from the two police and the sheriffs to go down. John Robertson had said yes to that, and they escorted our body home. We didn't know until the day of the procession, like right when the procession was to start. I want to stop you on that because I'm getting goosebumps, man. But I remember I was with Robertson in the car, and we go down Imola, and the amount of people all the way to the college, along Sororado Trail, and it's one of those things like you just don't say shit. You take it in, But it was something to see this community though, and to see how they respond to grief. Yeah. And they were doing it with you, man. Yeah. And to me, I didn't know what was going to happen after that, but it'd be great to talk about how this inspired you, because this community came out. Yeah. Very much so. In a way that I've never seen it before. Right. And we've seen it. We've seen fires, earthquakes. I've never seen fucking sides of roads with people and just there. Yeah. That was so powerful. It was, we kind of, the best thing we got advice from the chaplain down there at the time was he said, look, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about next week or whatever. Just if you need to eat. If you need to sleep, like just focus on right now. And so we were kind of just being taken through the motions. So when they said, oh, there's a procession, I'm like, okay, what is that? Like, whatever, fine. You're going to take us down there. So
Lieutenant Morrison, who we'd known forever, and his wife, Alaina, used to call her Auntie KK. They came and picked us up in an unmarked vehicle. They take us down there to the sheriff's offices where I think you were down there, weren't you? It's a bit of a blur. That was the first time we were near Elena's body since we had left her at Parents' Weekend. And as we left the procession, I remember, I don't know if you guys know Anil Patel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I tell him, I said, Anil, I don't think you realize you were the first person I saw that, like the very first person. So I think he was at the Hawthorne, was where he was standing with a couple of his people. And then about 100 yards later, and then the part for us was the emotion of the amount of people, but it was more the amount of people we had no idea who they were that came out in huge numbers, that it was like mind blowing to see how the community came forth. And they really did support in so many ways that was one moment for us to say, like, this is us. People ask me, like, is this cathartic for you to write the book? And I was like, not really. Like, for me, it was this community came out and supported us. And I saw how people in our darkest moments, how that helped us through. Right. So now this is my way of trying to say, like, hey, like, you're going to get through this. Like you can get through this if you choose to. And this is, but it's not easy and you can go from there. Well, so the community was amazing.
Well, let me ask you a question. Cause we've all dealt with losses and tragedy, right? But you went through this, right? And it's hard, it's your daughter, right? So how was it like saying, you know what, we're going to turn this into an opportunity to make the world better? Like that takes intentional purpose. Now you can go into a dark place, right? Yeah. But you and your family have done something so wonderful. So how was that like for you and your family? And you have a son too, right?
Yeah, our son Alex our son Alex is he's doing his master's in England. He's been there this is his fourth year. Way. So he's 21 now. He was 14 at the time because this November will be 7 years. And we were interviewed. I was on with Adam and Tamara a couple days after because Hannah wasn't up for it. And we got interviewed by CBS or somebody, national news. And I just said, mark my words, Elena's voice will be heard. And I didn't know what
you just said it.
I just said it like it was one of those in the moment. And then not long later, there was a GoFundMe done by a friend of my wife's from Pepperdine, and that we didn't know. So we ended up raised a couple $100,000. And we basically have said everything that we raise for Elena's voice goes 100% back to the community. So we have no employees. We have nothing. We don't try to combat anything that the local nonprofits are doing. Cope, News Aldea, they do great work. Mentis. And so we're kicking off right now the Hopeful Cities project. So Napa is about to be announced in the next week or two. And it might be by the time this launches is it's going to be announced soon that we're the first hopeful city on the West Coast.
So what is that?
So hopelessness and helplessness are the two key drivers for suicide and violence with people. And so this is a possibility in two ways. One, it puts together programming for youth groups, for like Teens Connect from Mentis, for veterans groups, for educators. So then they have the opportunity to have like pamphlets and ways to kind of go over and help teach hope, basically. And there's a lot of science in hope and how that really changes people and their mindset, and it changes the suicide rates and such. So that said, is we're kicking off the Hopeful Cities project in collaboration with Mentis and Monarch Family Center, and some of the others have all jumped on board. City of Napa is wanting to participate in some way. So we've had very good conversations with them. Nothing's official because we have to jump through hoops, but great conversations with leadership of the City of Napa that we're going to be coming back to them further with. And then the long-term idea is to make this would be the first Hopeful Valley in the country, is if we can, after we get it to work in City of Napa, then the idea would be a stretch to American Canyon all the way to Calistoga and have these resources for people. The second part of it is it's an online program that if, let's say, Alfredo, that you're having these moments and you don't want to tell anybody about it, this is a resource that online you could then go like, hey, I want to read a little bit about, like, it's like me going, man, this is kind of feeling weird in my chest. I'm going to go on WebMD for, like, it's the same kind of concept of some people want to do a little bit of, they're just understanding. And, it's hard to gauge what the rate is of how it works. The data, because you really don't know how many people.
Well, it's a significant problem. You hear about it every day, literally. Unfortunately, we see it in headlines almost every day. I just want to commend what you and Hannah especially have done, being like you touched on, Alfredo, how positive you have been to everyone else, even though you've gone through so much devastating hurt and loss.
Thank you.
I was on 3rd and Silverado Trail, and when the procession came through and turned, and it's as quiet as you could be outside, and the respect that the whole community felt, and a lot of that, I think now looking forward from that time is because of the way you have led and you have inspired people. And it's not division, it's not blame, it's not, finding fault. It's finding, like you're saying, hope and help.
Yeah.
And really, you're able to connect to young people that seems like these days are often struggling to find that kind of support, don't want to admit they might need it, but you're giving them these different platforms where they're safe.
Yeah, that's the intent. And thank you for saying that. I think ultimately, like we're all here to try to help grow and make this better. We can see it's frustrating to see the amount of mass shootings that are happening in the country. And recently I made a post on social media and in my blog and my podcast that was talking about how we can turn around that people are now blaming like LGBTQ community. And I'm like, 1% of these shootings have been that. Like the problem is much bigger than like trying to point the finger at who's the problem, right? We can try to blame it in a lot of factors. I think ultimately is how do we create the positive change that we want to change in our environment, that your kids aren't afraid to go to school or you're afraid to take them to school, right? Especially after the Michigan shooting in the Catholic school.
Well, now you can't go to church, you can't go to the supermarket, you can't do anything. But
but we also can't live in fear for the rest of our life. So for us, it was, a big piece for me was forgiveness. To be able to accept the fact that this man went through things that I don't understand and I don't really need to know all the details, but I was able to kind of like, hey, I forgive this because it allows to free me. And I heard that originally from Scarlett Lewis, who has the Choose Love movement. She lost her son, Jesse, in the Sandy Hook shooting, who was 6. And she said, Arik, Adam Lanza was bullied. He was, oh gosh, she used like 3 phrases. She goes, but he fell through the cracks for years. He was abused both psychologically and physically, she says. And then for 20 years, he fell through the cracks. And then he chose to get guns and go in and kill 26 people, including 20 elementary school children. She's like, we failed him for 20 years.
That's an interesting and so humble perspective.
Like that blew my mind as if who lost my daughter. And, and I'm like, wow, like it gave me chills to hear it. And I had already forgiven the shooter at that point. Because that was more freeing for me, but to hear her say that, it's like, it is because we're so busy trying to point the finger at who's the problem.
Yeah.
Proposition 1 removed a lot of preventative measures for mental health services in the state. And so now this Hopeful Cities project is an idea of how to give some preventative measures back out there.
Look, I want to say something though, because I think it's one thing to forgive, right? But it's forgive with a purpose.
Yes.
Right. And you're doing that, right? And I think to me, I just want to underscore that because, you put this together, right? And the question I want to ask you is, what's the purpose? Like, what are you trying to do with this? Because you didn't just do this to do it, right?
No, that was an expensive to do it, if that's the case.
Beyond cents and dollars here. But
and also, I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about the book, because I think it's going to be, you were talking about launching shortly after we're going to be publishing this.
So we're going to launch it November 1st. I have a signing event, a little book launch on November 5th. We'll be at the Book Mine. I'm going to talk to Copperfields. I know Barnhouse is also wanting to do something with my brother and Eric over at Barnhouse. So we're excited. I'm excited to release this. This was a way with my public speaking. It was one of those when you get announced, like when you asked me to introduce myself, I said entrepreneur. Well, now it's author, podcaster.
Yeah.
So because that does carry different weight when it comes into the public speaking kind of community. And so that was a big piece of it. And then secondarily, there's a lot of people, we all process grief differently, right? So the idea is like, you might need somebody to talk to. You also might prefer somebody to talk to, but not in a room together. I'd rather it be on Zoom or on a phone. You might need therapy. You might be like, hey, I'm super interested.
Or not to talk about it at all for a while.
Well, most people, and I use the phrase, and it's in here, it's called, I say it's like my beach ball, right? I've got this, I'm carrying it for the rest of my life. If I'm going to stuff this underwater, all I have to do is lose my balance and it pops back up. Right. But I'm carrying this beach ball for the rest of my life. Well, you both have things in your life. Every person has something in their life that's grief. And it's not always the loss of a loved one, but we all are carrying 8 beach balls, right? So for me, I look at it and say like, I can carry this and hold it. It's not too heavy to carry, or I can try to hide it. And that takes a lot more energy and balance and everything else. And so this was my way of saying some people choose like, hey, I'd rather just read and kind of be a little more introspective. That's okay too. And then some people, they try to rate it. I don't rate grief, like whether it was your father or your dog or my daughter. Like we don't have to go, well, mine's a 9 years, this is 7. It's still grief,
grief
right?
is grief.
So this is their opportunity to go like, hey, you know what? Like it just helps me understand like there's other people in these moments. And that's what I do. My podcast is called Lessons in Loss, Love, and Resilience. And it's to talk about just grief of things that have happened in our life that we weren't expecting and that caused a lot of pain and grief and go from there. So,
well, I keep going back to the cover. I mean, it's just a gorgeous photo, but also the fact that she was so into music and you're subtly representing a lot of her as a person, just in the cover itself. And then when you tell your story inside, I can't wait to read it. And I'm familiar with, I think some, I'll be interested to find out how much I'm not familiar with that you're sharing with us. And I'll remind folks that 2018 was an even more tragic year because that was the same year, the shooting at the Veterans Home in March of that year. And so to have this happen just a few months later was another shock to the community. It felt different, I think, for a lot of folks because they knew, your family, they knew her, and it was a little more personal for them. But those two tragedies in this one community in the same just few months was pretty overwhelming for a lot of folks. And you can be an example of how you manage that and handle it and process it. And like we were saying, turning it into positive learnings, because you want there to be something of value that comes from this. Because otherwise you're just, it's a tragic incident in your life that is hard enough on its own.
And what's beautiful, look, we haven't talked about politics, right? Because it's once you get into these issues, it's so easy to assign blame, finger point, or get caught up in how big it is and you can't solve it, right? And I think you were talking about that earlier. You just said, in my opinion, just hearing your story, it's like, you didn't try to change the world, you're trying to change it. And that may lead to more monumental change, but you got to start somewhere, right? And I hope that anyone that's listening, though, John, is seeing how you can turn one of your darkest moments into a stepping stone. You don't need to know where the whole staircase goes, but just take the first step. Whether it's in sports or something, just take the first step. So I look forward to reading it because I think it's going to be very powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think it was on that first interview with CBS that night that I said, look, it didn't take Timothy McVeigh to kill 252 people to have a gun. I don't blame the gun. The guns are a problem. Don't get me wrong, because we're putting them in the hands too easily of people in our country where we're allowing somebody like the Gilroy shooter or others to go get it where they're already mentally unstable. There's plenty out there, except if they want to find a different way, there's a lot more. And that's what's great about the Choose Love movement is they are saying like, look, there's something so much deeper than whether it's the gun or filling our car with fertilizer and blowing up the Oklahoma Federal building, right? So it's trying to find that ability to find hope and resilience and community and help people reach out to each other before we're at a place where we're in such a dark place that we feel so hopeless or helpless that we choose to do like recently in the Mormon church. And so those are the things that you just look now and go like, what is going wrong? Where are we going wrong? And so that's what we hope to do with this. And
well, look, not to tie back to sports, but raising 3 kids, they're all different. And you think about how they're growing up. They're growing up in a world of AI, social media, very different than how we grew up. But it's that purpose, it's that hope. And I think it starts at a very basic level. But if you don't give them the platforms to get engaged in sports, to play music, to do this, what do they get? They're fed so much information, intentionally and unintentionally. And that's just, to me, how the world around us has changed. So you got to go back to the basics. And to me, that's why I'm glad we're doing sports. We're doing this. You got to do it all.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of a final perspective for me is your family doesn't, want to be in this situation, and many people can't respond the way you and your entire family have. And it's amazing that you can do that and keep doing it year after year after year.
Thank you.
I'm sure there are times you wish you could get away from it. And I'm just as sure as there's probably no way to ever get away from it. But to your point that you were just making, you and your wife and your son and the rest of your family are examples of how to come together as a family, but also to rely on your community. And it should be an example of not just the Napa Valley community, but others as they turn this into a best-selling book for you. The example you're setting, as hard as it might be to continue to do that, I just can never say thank you and how proud we are all of you and your family for being able to turn something that's so tragic into something that's really positive.
Well, I appreciate that. At the same time, we wouldn't have done it if it weren't for the Napa community. Like, I mean, I don't think we'd be in this same. I don't think I'd be sitting here today if we weren't received in the way that our communities really did that, in my opinion. But it's easy to say in hindsight. So,
cheers.
Thank you guys.
You.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Alfredo, I'm really pleased to have had Arik on and talk about a lot of the different parts of his life, and sharing the really difficult, tragic part of his life has really become kind of a mission for him, which is very impressive.
Look, we've had him and his brother, and I'll just say, their parents did something right. There goes the construction. But to me, when you go through something like they did, right, him and his wife and his son, and go through dark times, John, like those are fucking dark times. You can be mad at the world, and they chose intentionally to make an opportunity, not for financial purpose, but to make it better, to make the world better. Like, that is a good family. That's a good human being.
And I was also glad to hear his perspective on how the community responded and supported them. Some total strangers didn't know who Alaina was or the Housley family directly, but as we both shared our perspectives on when the procession came back home, but also how the community really embraced and held them up when they needed it. And now they're able to return that goodwill and support the community. So I give them real credit.
To Alaina's Voice.
Cheers. To learn more about Alaina's Voice Foundation, visit alainasvoice.org. For Napa County behavioral health support services related to trauma and grief, go to napacounty.gov.